shift, the stakes are high. The mag breaks it down, no need to sigh. From EU rules to global news, Reg with Meg, your trusted views.
Welcome to Reg with Meg's weekly regulatory roundup.
We're diving into something that's probably on a lot of our listeners' wrists right now, wearable tech. Specifically, the FDA just dropped a big new draft guidance on cuffless blood pressure measuring devices.
Right, this is a huge topic. We're talking about smartwatches, rings, patches, all these gadgets that promise to measure your blood pressure without that traditional inflatable cuff.
Exactly, and the FDA's finally weighing in with a formal framework for how these devices should be tested for accuracy and safety. It's a specialized framework just for these new technologies.
So let's break it down. What exactly is this document?
It's a draft guidance, officially titled Cuffless Non-Invasive Blood Pressure Measuring Devices, Clinical Performance Testing and Evaluation. It was officially released on January 23, 2026.
Okay, a draft guidance. So it's not final law yet, but it clearly outlines the FDA's current thinking on the subject.
Precisely. It's the FDA laying out a clear roadmap for developers on how to conduct the clinical performance testing needed for a pre-market submission.
And what are the main goals here?
Well, the guidance aims to do a few things. First, it clarifies how to actually test the clinical performance of these devices. Second, it hopes to promote consistency and efficiency in how the FDA reviews new submissions.
A level playing field for everyone.
Exactly. And third, it provides recommendations on data collection and evaluation methods that actually reflect real-world use.
That makes sense. You can't just test it in a perfect lab setting. You need to know it works when someone's walking around or going about their day.
The whole point is to validate the technology, which is very different from the old cuff method. These new devices derive blood pressure from signals like light, that's called photoplethysmography, or force, known as tonometry, rather than an inflatable cuff.
So it's a completely different technological approach needing its own set of rules.
Right. And the guidance gets pretty specific with its recommendations.
Okay, lay it on us. What are the key takeaways from the document?
First, the target scope. It applies to non-invasive systems that estimate systolic, diastolic, or mean blood pressure through these new types of sensors. It specifically targets devices under the product code DXN.
Got it. So it's tightly defined. What about accuracy?
This is the real meat of it. Standardized benchmarks. The FDA recommends that devices demonstrate a mean error of less than or equal to plus or minus 5 milliliters of mercury.
Okay.
And on top of that, the standard deviation of those measurements must be less than 8 millimeters of mercury across all tests. It's a very clear statistical bar for accuracy that these devices have to meet.
So that gives a very clear target for manufacturers to hit. What else?
This next part is critical. Diverse study populations. The FDA is mandating that validation data has to reflect real demographic diversity.
In what ways?
Across age, body mass index or BMI, and sex. But here's the really notable recommendation. They specifically call out skin tone.
Oh, that's huge, especially for devices that use light sensors to get a reading.
Exactly. The guidance recommends that at least 25% of the study subjects fall into each category of the Monk's skin tone scale. This is to ensure the sensors work accurately across all levels of skin pigmentation.
That is such an important step for health equity. We've seen issues with other light-based sensors, like pulse oximeters, having accuracy issues with darker skin tones. It's great to see the FDA being so proactive here.
Totally agree. It's a major focus. The guidance also details the trial design itself. It's not enough for a device to be accurate just when you're sitting perfectly still.
Right.
Evaluations have to include testing for static accuracy, but also for BP change detection and for stability over time. And for a standard adult use device, they're suggesting a minimum sample size of 85 participants.
So this all sounds very thorough, which leads to the question, why is this happening now? It feels like these devices have been on the market for a while.
That's a huge part of the reason. This technology is expanding incredibly fast, and a lot of these devices have been sold directly to consumers, in some cases without proper FDA authorization.
So the agency is playing a bit of catch-up.
Yes, and this move comes partly in response to a couple of key things. First, as you said, there are unauthorized devices on the market claiming to measure blood pressure without meeting regulatory standards. That's a real public health risk.
Mm-hmm.
And second, there's been growing interest by major manufacturers in these features, but there's been regulatory uncertainty over how they should be evaluated.
That makes sense. They need to know the rules of the game before they invest millions in development. And the FDA has been pretty vocal about this issue in the past, right?
Historically, the FDA has warned consumers against using unauthorized blood pressure devices, especially cuffless ones on wearables, because inaccurate readings are so risky.
Of course, it could lead to a delayed diagnosis of hypertension or someone getting improper treatment.
Exactly. Now, to be clear, some cuffless technologies have received FDA 510(k) clearance in the past, but this new draft guidance is separate. It's about setting a clear, modern standard for the entire clinical evaluation process itself.
And it's not just the FDA that's been cautious. There's been statements from other health groups.
You're right. Independent clinical and scientific groups like the American Heart Association have also emphasized that many wearable cuffless BP devices are not yet proven accurate enough to diagnose or guide treatment. This guidance is a step towards building that required clinical trust.
So, what's the path forward for a company that wants to develop one of these devices with this new guidance in mind?
The guidance actually encourages a collaborative route. It points manufacturers towards the Q submission program.
A Q-sub. Can you remind our listeners what that is?
It's a formal process for companies to get early feedback from the FDA on their study protocols before they start expensive and time-consuming clinical trials. It's a way to de-risk the regulatory process and make sure they're on the right track from the beginning.
That seems really practical. Get the feedback early before you spend the money.
Definitely. And since this is a draft guidance, it's not set in stone yet. The FDA is currently accepting public comments on it.
Is there a deadline for that?
Yep, the public comment period is open through March 24th, 2026. So stakeholders, clinicians, manufacturers, patient groups, they can all weigh in and help shape the final version.
Great. So to wrap it up, the big picture here is that as wearable health tech explodes, the FDA is stepping in to establish clear, rigorous, and equitable standards to make sure these cuffless blood pressure devices are both safe and effective for everyone.
That's the perfect summary. It's all about balancing innovation with patient safety. And this draft guidance is a massive step in that direction.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's Roundup. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to
Stay informed and stay compliant. Bye, guys.